Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. I'm Bryson Carver. As always, we've got a great show for you guys today. All kinds of stuff to talk about with the NBA. We had a massive trade in the NFL today that I'm going to talk about in just a second. Also, Serena Williams lost to Naomi Osaka yesterday at the Australian Open. I'll discuss why that's actually a testament to Tom Brady. I'll discuss that later on the show. But let's start with Carson Wentz, who was traded today from the Philadelphia Eagles to the Indianapolis Colts. Now, first of all, I don't think this is that surprising. We found out on Super Bowl Sunday that the Eagles were going to be actively seeking to trade Carson Wentz. Now, I've also read conflicting reports, I wouldn't say about Wentz, but about Jalen Hurts, because now people are saying, oh, this is Jalen Hurts' time in Philly. Well, I'm actually reading the Eagles, who of course have a top 10 pick, are thinking about possibly taking a quarterback in the draft. Now, it's likely that, well, we know Trevor Lawrence won't be available. Where it's looking more and more like Zach Wilson out of BYU is going to be the second pick over Justin Fields. So with Justin Fields dropped to Philly, I don't know what the Eagles quarterback situation is today, but let's stick to Wentz. Now, Carson Wentz, of course, he's been a guy since Carson Wentz was actually involved in the very first topic I ever had on Carving It Up. And, you know, I was talking about Dak and Wentz, and I'm like, listen, Wentz may talent-wise look like he has more upside than Dak. Right. But as far as intangibles, as far as winning the big game, as far as staying healthy, as far as leadership, taking Dak over Wentz. I'm taking a lot of guys over Wentz 100%. We've seen talented quarterbacks in the NFL flop. Now, Carson Wentz hasn't been a draft bust. I mean, he hasn't. In 2017, he was going to be the MVP. I mean, even me, one of the biggest Carson Wentz critics out there, even I can admit, and one of the biggest Tom Brady fans out there can admit, yeah, Carson Wentz was going to win the MVP in 2017 had he not gotten injured late in that season against the Rams. So last season, he was atrocious. I mean, he had the worst touchdown to interception ratio in football. I mean, just constant, every game, it seemed like he was throwing three interceptions. It was bad. And it's not like, it's not like Philly had nothing. Okay, they had a decent running game, had some really good wide receivers and tight ends. Offensive line was relatively healthy throughout the year. I thought the defense was great. I thought Philly's defense took a big step forward this season. And yet and still, Carson Wentz was horrible. So he's traded to Indianapolis. Now, this is where I thought Carson Wentz would go. I thought it would be the best destination for him because the last time we saw, if you want to put it this way, the greatness of Carson Wentz, if you want to put it in that context, who was his offensive coordinator? Well, it was Frank Reich. Frank Reich is now, or has been, the head coach. This is his fourth year, going into his fourth year as the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. And, Frank Reich, in his 3 years with the Colts, has only one of those years he's had a true franchise quarterback, and that's Andrew Luck, who, of course, after 2018, because of more nagging injuries from years past of having a bad offensive line, once the Colts finally do get a great offensive line, damage has already been done. Andrew Luck retires after the 2018 season. And so 2019, Jacoby Brissett, he's a good quarterback. Jacoby Brissett's kind of in that category, like with Andy Dalton, Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston, where I say low-end starter, high-end backup. I think Jacoby Brissett's one of the 32 best quarterbacks in the league, thus he's a starter. But he's not going to be the guy, even with that roster, that's going to take you places, take you to the Super Bowl, win multiple playoff games. And so the Colts ended up going 7-9 in 2019. So they get Phillip Rivers from free agency. The Chargers let him go. Colts pick him up, and the Colts go 11-5 this season, but they're 1-done in the playoffs against the Buffalo Bills. So, obviously, Phillip Rivers retired. Jacoby Brissett is a free agent. So, up until today, Colts didn't have a quarterback. So they get one with Carson Wentz. Now, he's absolutely an upgrade, no question about it, over Phillip Rivers, right? He's more athletic. Accuracy, it's still a little, that's up for debate. Obviously you have the experience of Phillip Rivers. You have that. But again, the biggest issue to me with Carson Wentz is talent-wise, that's not a problem. Now, I do worry about his accuracy. I've always worried about his accuracy since he came into the league. He's never been, his completion percentage has not been among the best of the top quarterbacks in the league since he came in 2016. But Carson Wentz, I think the biggest deal with him is between the ears. That's been Carson Wentz's biggest problem. So I don't know if it's Doug Peterson, who, of course, the Eagles fired. I don't know if it's The fact that Nick Foles has a statue outside of the Eagles practice facility because of his contributions to that Super Bowl winning team. I don't know if that messed with him. I don't know if the Eagles drafting Jalen Hurts in the second round after, not long after giving Carson Wentz a big contract extension that was paying him around $32 million a year. I don't know. I don't know what was messing with Carson Wentz for the last couple of seasons, but we've really, people talk about how great he is. 2016, we're not going to be too hard on him. It was his rookie year, right? Like most quarterbacks don't have the rookie season of Dak Prescott. We're not going to hold that against him. Eagles went 7-9. So he comes back the next year and he's the best quarterback in the league in 2017. He's going to win the MVP. Then he gets hurt, unfortunately, against the Rams in week 14. And Nick Foles steps in and the Eagles go win the Super Bowl. And so he comes back in 2018. He misses the first 3 games, if I remember correctly. No, the first 2 games. He missed the first 2 games of the season. He comes back and goes 6-7. And as a matter of fact, the Eagles were not going to make the playoffs going into the last few games of the season. Excuse me, Carson Wentz went 5-6. The Eagles were 6-7 going into week 15. It's like, okay, Eagles, they're not going to make the playoffs. Dallas had a firm control of the NFC East. And Nick Foles comes in again, and he's St. Nick again. The Eagles win 3 straight games, 2 of them on the road. They get to the playoffs. They beat the Bears on the road. Bears looked like they were going to be the favorites to win that game with that great defense in 2018. And all Nick Foles does is leads the Eagles into Chicago at Soldier Field, and on a 4th and goal play, touchdown to Golden Tate. Eagles win that playoff game. And as far as I'm concerned, they should have beaten the New Orleans Saints in the divisional round if Alshon Jeffrey hadn't had his hands in the cookie jar, in the Butterfingers jar, because he had a pass go right through his hands, and Marshawn Lattimore got the interception. Basically, the game's over. If Alshon catches that ball, I think they were getting close to the red zone. They were down 6, I believe. Eagles are going to go down, in my opinion, and score a touchdown and win that football game and go right back to the NFC Championship game again without Carson Wentz. Okay, so Carson Wentz comes back in 2019. Nick Foles is gone. Okay, so he doesn't have to worry about looking over his shoulder, and a Philadelphia fan favorite is there. So the Eagles go, the Eagles go 5-7 through their first 12 games, and Wentz is up and down, inconsistent, as we've seen on numerous occasions. And then over the last 4 games, to his credit, he played unbelievable. I mean, he made one throw in week 15. I think they were playing the Washington football team, and he's rolling out to his right. It's one of the best throws I've ever seen. Just goes to show you this kid's talent. He's rolling out to his right, and he just throws a dart into the back right corner of the end zone. I can't remember who it was to. I think it might have been to Greg Ward, the receiver, who was a former quarterback in college. One of the best throws I've ever seen, at least in the red zone. And, it was a part of that great Eagles run where they won 4 straight games. The problem is, here's who they beat. The Eli Manning-led Giants, who finished 4-12. The Dwayne Haskins-led Washington football team, who finished that season 3-13. The 8-8 Dallas Cowboys, going against a Dak Prescott who couldn't feel his throwing shoulder for a week. And the Daniel Jones-led New York Giants, who had mailed it in by that point. It's week 17. Eagles win that game. They win the division. And predictably, against the Seattle Seahawks, Carson Wentz goes out. And of course, the Eagles lose that playoff game to the Seahawks. And so we've just seen it's been the tale of Carson Wentz has been a tale of inconsistency, whether it's been inconsistency in his health, whether it's been in his play, whether it's been in his leadership. That's been the biggest issue with Carson Wentz for the last 5 seasons. So I don't think he could have come into a better situation, been traded to a better situation than Indianapolis. Because the 2 teams that were listed above everybody was the Colts and the Bears. I didn't like the Bears situation at all. I like Matt Nagy a lot. I don't know what they're going to do at the quarterback position. I could be wrong, but I don't think Mitchell Trubisky is going to start for them next year. He's a backup quarterback. He is not a starting quarterback in the NFL. He's not. So of course Carson Wentz would have been an upgrade. But in that division against Aaron Rodgers, again, we got to see what the Lions do, but still against a great Minnesota Vikings roster, I don't think he could have been that successful in Chicago. So he gets traded to Indianapolis in a division that is just full of uncertainty. Because you have the Jaguars, who, yes, they're going to get Trevor Lawrence, but Trevor Lawrence isn't going to go to the playoffs right off the bat. I love him. I think he's going to be amazing, but they're not. Jacksonville's probably going to win around 6 games if I'm being generous. Then you look at the Houston Texans. Whether he's on the roster or not, I don't believe he will be by the time the season starts. Whether he's on the roster or not, Deshaun Watson is not going to be the Texans' starting quarterback in 2021. I'm just here to tell you that right now. So that's 2 wins for the Colts, who have a loaded roster. And then Tennessee is really their only threat to win the division. But do you really trust Ryan Tannehill in big spots and big games? I mean, they got to the AFC Championship game because of Derrick Henry. Plain and simple. Derrick Henry had one of the greatest runs we've ever seen by a running back over 3 straight games against Houston, New England, and Baltimore. And, of course, they ran into a monster in Kansas City, and that was the end of that. But you look at the Colts roster, and this is why I suggested that this is like the perfect situation for a lot of the free agent quarterbacks or a lot of the quarterbacks that want to get traded, because you have a great young running back in Jonathan Taylor. I loved Jonathan Taylor last year coming out of Wisconsin. I thought he was the best running back in the draft by far. Loved him coming out of Wisconsin. He was 3rd in the league in rushing last year, in part because he was running behind the best offensive line in football. It is. I know they lost Costanzo to retirement, but they still have Quentin Nelson, who it's either him or Zach Martin is the best guard in football. You have Ryan Kelly, who's one of the best centers, if not the best center in football. He or Ryan Jensen in Tampa Bay, good as it gets. And then you have really good weapons. Michael Pittman Jr. is looking to show some signs of being an elite receiver. T.Y. Hilton still gets it done. And so they have some, maybe they could upgrade a little bit at the receiver position, at the skill players position, but they've got talent. Okay, so then you look on the defensive side of the ball. You got some ballers, man. You got Myers Leonard, who, in my opinion, is probably, he's either the first or second best linebacker in football. It's either him or Devin White. Devin White's a monster. You could even say the other linebacker in Tampa Bay, Levante David. But Myers Leonard is phenomenal. And then just across the board, their secondary is great. Their pass rushing is really good. Their linebacking core is great. So again, you had the great offensive coach who the last time he was paired with Wentz. Wentz was an MVP candidate. And by the way, the special teams is really good in Indianapolis too. Okay, they have a really good young kicker in Roberto Blankenship. And they have the young kicker, the punter, Sanchez, who's really good himself. So I think his name's Sanchez. So the Colts have a loaded roster. The Colts really at this point are an elite quarterback away from winning the Super Bowl. So similar to Matt Stafford in Los Angeles with the Rams, it's all in front of Carson Wentz now. No excuses. This is on you. I said the same thing 2 weeks ago, or however long it was ago. I think it was 2 weeks ago about Matt Stafford. You get traded to the Los Angeles Rams out of a dysfunctional Detroit Lions organization where people could say you still have the crutch of, well, he's in a bad organization. They've never had a great coach. He's had great talent at the receiver position, Megatron for crying out loud. But same division as Aaron Rodgers, that's really tough. Well, now you're with the Rams in a loaded situation. Amazing defense, amazing running game, great receiving talent, great young coach, great special teams. It's all in front of you now. Same thing with Carson Wentz in Indianapolis. I do think the Colts today are the division champs. I do think they win the AFC South. I do think they're better today with Carson Wentz. Do I believe they can beat Kansas City? Let's see how this plays out. I'm not willing to say, oh, yeah, they're going to beat Kansas City or even Buffalo. I love Buffalo. The problem with Buffalo is they ran into the Kansas City Chiefs. That was Buffalo's biggest issue. And so I think it's a great pairing, even coming from me, who's been as hard on Wentz as anybody. But I think it works out for both parties. But championship contender, let's slow down and see what happens from here. Playoff team, division champion, I think absolutely. I trust Carson Wentz more than I do Ryan Tannehill. I do. So let's move into a sport I don't really talk about much on this show, tennis. And of course, everybody saw the Australian Open yesterday, Serena Williams, Naomi Osaka. And Serena lost. Naomi was just phenomenal. The thing is Serena is, of course, the GOAT. She's the GOAT. There's no question about it. But I was just watching that yesterday. I was watching 3 things at once. I was watching Tennessee. Of course, I'm a big Tennessee Vols fan. Go Vols. Beat South Carolina last night. I'm watching the Tennessee Vols men's basketball game. I'm watching Golden State Warriors, who we came back against the Miami Heat. That was a phenomenal basketball game. And I'm watching Serena and Naomi Osaka. And it felt like, kind of passing the torch moment. And that's the real what about individual sports is when someone's better than you, you don't have anyone else to lean on. That's team sports. Patrick Mahomes is better than Tom Brady. I love Tom Brady, but Pat Mahomes is just on another level. But Tom Brady did have the offensive line. Mahomes did not. Tom Brady had the running game. Mahomes did not. Situationally, Bruce Arians was better than Andy Reid. So that's the team sports. You have other teammates to pick you up, right? Individual sports, golf, tennis, swimming, you don't have that. Boxing. So Serena lost to Osaka yesterday, and of course, I don't think anybody's. I did pick Serena. I felt like that was as well as I've seen Serena play up until last night. Throughout this Australian Open, probably since her health scare a few years ago when she had her baby girl, and thankfully that nothing terrible happened with that, thank God. But we saw Serena at the podium last night, and she I think the PR guy said, okay, 2 questions left, and she's right in the middle of answering her second to last question, and then she's just overcome with emotion and she leaves the press conference. So take yourself into Serena's position for a minute. You're the GOAT. You're the greatest of all time. You're probably the most dominant, not probably, you're the most dominant female tennis player we've ever seen, by far. 23 Grand Slams, GOAT. And then all of a sudden, there's this younger tennis player who's the best player in the world. And simply put, Serena lost to a better opponent. There's no shame in that. There's no shame in that. But you got to put yourself in her position where you're like, you're the greatest for years and years and years. I believe her first majors tournament was in like 1998 or 99. So it's 20 years ago. She's 39 years old. We forget this is how athletes are supposed to age. We've seen Tom Brady over the last month, go on the road and beating Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers, and then beating Pat Mahomes in the Super Bowl and playing great in all 3 games. And, it's like, athletes are playing past 40 with ease. Tom Brady's an outlier. He's an outlier in a lot of things. Most notably, the fact that he's still dominating the game at age 43. Serena's 39 years old. This is how it's supposed to go. It is. Michael Jordan, okay, he retires at like age 35, I think. Best player on the planet. By the time he's 40 with the Washington Wizards, he was good, but he wasn't MJ. He wasn't prime MJ. Michael Phelps made the smart decision leaving in his prime, or at least at the back end of his prime. He's not going to be competing in the Olympics this year, assuming we do have an Olympics. He's not going to be competing because he doesn't want to, run the risk of leaving and not being the best, which, I can understand. And I understand from Serena's position, she really, really wants to get that 24th Grand Slam to be tied for first all time. I get it. I totally get it. Props to her, the competitor that she is. But this is how athletes are supposed to age. It's not normal to be playing at the age of 40 years old and still dominating and winning championships or winning Grand Slams, Super Bowls, NBA Finals. That's not how it works. Tom Brady's an outlier. Okay? And so, again, simply put, it felt like a passing of the torch. Because Serena is 0 for 2 in majors against Osaka. Maybe this June, July in Wimbledon, she has a shot to get that 24th Grand Slam. She hasn't won a Grand Slam since she won the Australian Open. Not this Australian Open, but 4 years ago when she was 9 weeks pregnant. She was pregnant and won the Australian Open. That's how great she was in the middle of her prime. But I mean, it's sad to watch an athlete who, we kind of grow up watching, and, no matter how old you are, what generation, whatever, we kind of all have those select few athletes. For me, it's LeBron, Brady, Serena, Michael Phelps. Like, those are like kind of the 4 for me. And it sucks to see them, get older and they're not as dominant anymore. It's not fun. And I can't imagine what's like to be in their position, to be so dominant for so long and then just kind of fall off. But that's how it works, though. That's how it's supposed to work. Brady's an outlier. So Serena has absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. Keep in mind, Osaka is 16 years younger. Naomi Osaka is 23 years old. She's taken the torch from, or Serena's passed the torch to her. This is her time now. And like I said, just props to Serena Williams. I don't know if this is it. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. She's still great, but she's not dominant Serena Williams right in the middle of her prime, winning major after major after major after Grand Slam after Grand Slam. She's not in that stage of her career anymore. But props to her for. I mean, listen, She competed her tail off against Osaka. She just ran out of gas at the end because, again, Osaka's 16 years younger, right? If Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady, or let's go back to the early 2000s when it's, Kobe Bryant was kind of like the people saw as the up and coming, kind of taking the torch from Jordan. It ended up being LeBron. I know some people might not love to hear that. Of course, rest in peace, Kobe. I loved Kobe, but LeBron took the torch from Jordan. But early 2000s, before LeBron came into the league, it was like, okay, Kobe's taking the torch from Jordan. And if it was just Kobe and Jordan one-on-one, Kobe's going to win. He is. Early 2000s. And same thing, if today Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes do like a throw-off or something, Pat Mahomes is going to beat Tom Brady. He is. He's a better player. But again, that's the thing about team sports, is you do get help. And I don't think that diminishes Brady or Mahomes. But this is how it works in professional sports. So certainly I do feel for Serena. Again, it would suck to be the best. You're not chasing about, you're the best. And then just, it's a younger competitor comes in and they're just better. And again, up until this point, Serena had been dominating. She had been unbelievable. But again, when you run into somebody like Naomi Osaka, who I believe is the best player right now, that's normally what happens. I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine if she had won yesterday, though? What the reaction would have been? That'd have been incredible. I'm still not ruling it out. Her getting one more, and getting the tie for first all time in majors, in Grand Slams. But she's the GOAT. That loss yesterday does not diminish her legacy whatsoever. This is how it goes with athletes as they transition out of their prime and into the latter stages of their career. That's how it works. Father Time's undefeated, right? Father Time's having his toughest battle with the guy in Tampa right now, but he's beaten everybody else. Everybody. None of us are going to beat Father Time. So that's how it works. So I wanted to talk about, now shifting to baseball, Fernando Tatis Jr., a kid who I love. He's going to be something special, man. And I read the headline yesterday. I got the notification on my phone that said that Fernando Tatis Jr. is signing a 14-year, $340 million extension with the San Diego Padres. And, first glance, I see 14 years. I'm like, oh my God, come on, man. That's, and then I sit back and think, hold on. He's 20, I've been critical of like these crazy decade-long contracts. In this case, it's almost a decade and a half long. Okay. So, I mean, this is going to keep him in San Diego for almost the rest of his career. But then I stepped back and I was like, hold on. He's 22 years old. He's easily a top 15, top 20 player in the game. There's no doubt about it. He's got the potential at some point in his career to be the best player in Major League Baseball. Okay. And we've got some young prospects. He's got the potential to be the best player in baseball in the next 2 to 3 years. I mean, it's not going to be long before he transitions into his prime and he's the best player. I think it's a split between Trout and Mookie Betts. If you had asked me one game for my life, one at-bat for my life, I'd probably take Mookie Betts. One big play in the outfield for my life, it'd be close because Trout's great, but I'd probably take Mookie. But at some point, Fernando Tatis Jr. is going to pass both those guys, I believe, in the next few years. But then I did the math. I'm like, okay, he's 22 right now. So 14 years, I'd take him to age 36. Well, that probably isn't the end of his career. Maybe he plays a couple more years and retires. Again, 14 years down the road, that's a long time from now. But that's how long the contract will carry out. He'll be 36 years old by the time it expires. But I did the math, and I'm like, okay, this is brilliant by the Padres. This is brilliant business. $24 million a year, basically. A little over, just slightly north of $24 million a year. For a player like this, and you don't have to worry about contract negotiations. You don't have to worry about free agency. That's genius. Genius by the San Diego Padres. A guy who's going to be the best player in baseball in the next few years. You don't have to worry about free agency for a decade and a half, which by that point, surely he'll be out of his prime by then. And you look at the Padres, and they gave the Dodgers, who won the World Series, they gave them the run for their money in that divisional series in 2020. So this is brilliant. I have absolutely no problem with this. Matter of fact, I think this is great job. Props to the San Diego front office, because you're signing a guy who's, you look at his numbers, and again, keep in mind, it was a 70-game season. I think it was a 72-game regular season, if I remember correctly. It might have been or was it 50? I can't remember how many games were in the regular season, but it was condensed, of course, because of COVID. But in a very condensed regular season, less than half the games were played. Fernando Tatis hit 277. Again, he's 22 years old. Hit 277, 17 home runs. By the way, he has a career batting average over 300. So this kid, again, he's a kid. He's still a kid. He's going to be unbelievable for the next decade. And you're only paying him $24 million? So that's a great job by the Padres getting him signed, locked into the organization for the next decade and a half. The Padres are going to be World Series contenders. You look at some of the young prospects that they have coming up. The Padres are going to be legit for the next 6 or 7 years or so. It reminds me a little bit of the San Francisco Giants in the early 2010s. I get same state, but they had these young prospects, signed some free agents, brought them up, and they won 3 World Series in 5 years. I could see the Padres going down that route. Right now it's the Dodgers. Dodgers should be the favorites. The Dodgers got Trevor Bauer out of free agency. They're just stacked across the board. It's unbelievable. But Dodgers are the favorites to win the World Series next year. I think they will. But the Padres in the next few years are going to be contenders. They might be the Dodgers' biggest threat. Because I still don't know about Atlanta. Atlanta sports kind of has a reputation for not winning big games or choking leads in big games. Sorry for the sports fans in Atlanta for that little tidbit. But that's the point. Is great young player who's going to be the best player in a few years, and you get a discount, and you don't have to worry about free agency. Great job by the Padres getting this deal done. Great job getting this deal done, for real. So let's transition to Draymond Green. Now, Draymond Green made waves with some comments he made following the Warriors' win over the Cavs Monday night. A game, by the way, if I shall throw this in, where Steph Curry scored 36 points in 30 minutes. I don't know why people aren't talking about him in the MVP discussion. I don't. But back to Draymond Green. So obviously the Cavs are looking to move on from Andre Drummond. Center, best rebounder of the game by far. It seemed like every single season he's top 5, if not number 1 in rebounding. I think he's led the league in rebounding 3 times in his career. So he's as good as it gets. But the Cavs are sitting right now. They're looking to trade him. Doesn't sound like he's requested a trade. That's certainly not what the reports coming out of Cleveland are saying. So they're trying to move him. The Cavs are not going to be a playoff team this year. Move him to another situation. But Draymond talked about it after the game, after the Warriors went over Cleveland on Monday night. And he said to watch Andre Drummond before the game, sit on the sidelines, then go to the back, and to come out in street clothes because the team is going to trade him, it's BS. Because when James Harden asked for a trade and eventually dogged it, nobody is going to fight back that James was dogging in his last days in Houston. But he was castrated for wanting to go to a different team, and everybody destroyed that man. And yet a team can come and say, oh, we want to trade a guy, and then that guy is going to sit. And if he doesn't stay professional, he's a cancer, and he's not good in someone's locker room, and he's the issue. And so I sat back and by the way, this is not just because Draymond Green's a Golden State Warrior, and I'm like, I'll stick by my Golden State Warriors. But I kind of sat back and I was like, okay. And I thought about this Sunday because I heard someone bring it up, and I'm like, that's really interesting. Is that James Harden, obviously we saw how the situation in Houston, I think James earlier this week actually apologized for how it went down. It wasn't good. James Harden put on a couple pounds, to say the least. I mean, seriously, it looked like he was 15 pounds overweight playing NBA basketball. Like that's not good. And so, the whole situation goes down. He's, some games, James Harden's just refusing to take shots. He's just playing passively. He's not himself. And eventually Houston finds a deal with Brooklyn. They trade him to the Nets, and that's that. But I sat back and I thought about it, and I was like, it sucks, but does James Harden get traded if he doesn't kind of do what he did in Houston? Now, my criticism, I'm still critical of James Harden and how he was given that much power in the organization. I'm all about player empowerment. I'm all about certain players be given certain privileges if you've earned it. LeBron James, and for that, to a lesser degree, Anthony Davis, has earned certain privileges with the Lakers. Damian Lillard has earned certain privileges with the Portland Trailblazers, right? Like that's how it works. Giannis in Milwaukee. Like, you get certain privileges as a superstar. I have no problem with that. You've earned it. You're the best player in the team. You're one of the best players in the game. And, you sell tickets. You make us a crap load of money. And yeah, of course, we're going to give you certain privileges. That's why I'm critical of the Seahawks and of the Texans for not, in the NFL, for not giving their quarterbacks certain privileges, right? Because you're paying them a lot of money. They're making you even more money, and you're not really rewarding them as far as giving them at least some say. I'm not saying all the say, but some say. But you hear James Harden in Houston, and he dictated when the plane took off, when film session started, when practice started, whether they're going to have practice or not. He, anytime he was at the All-Star game, normally the NBA, they have the All-Star game on a Sunday, and then 4 days later, Thursday or Friday, they come back and the season resumes. James Harden would just skip the practice leading up to the first game after the All-Star break. So I'm still critical of James Harden in that regard, because that didn't have anything to do with his trade request from Houston. However, as far as the weight thing, him putting on a couple LBs, as far as he was kind of, I didn't like taking shots at teammates. I didn't like that. But trying to force his way out of Houston, does he get traded if he's chill about it? I mean, it's just ask yourself this question. Is James Harden still a Houston Rocket today if he handles it, dare I say, professionally? And you want them to handle it professionally. You see Deshaun Watson in Houston. I think he's handling this great. I really do. I don't know how you could be handling this considering the circumstances of that organization. I don't think you could be handling this any better. Right? But, we saw the Rockets offer James Harden a two-year extension worth $100 million. The man was going to make $50 million a season playing basketball. And he's like, no, I want out. I'm out of here. And so then that to me I was like, okay, yeah, he definitely wants out of Houston now if he's going to turn down $50 million a year. And so, and look, it's a credit to, there's for some reason this reputation like, oh, NBA players, they only care about the money and whatever. No, these guys care about winning. That's why they team up with other stars to go after championships. That I love about the NBA. These guys can only make so much. Well, I don't want to say it that way. Your career don't last forever. You want to chase rings. You want to make as much money as you can on and off the court. Hey, have at it. I'm all for that. And so back to Draymond Green's point is Andre Drummond didn't request a trade from what I'm hearing, from what we're all hearing. And the Cavs are like, okay, we're going to trade you. And so the way I look at it is, okay, if the organization handles it unprofessionally, and I don't think Cleveland's handled it poorly necessarily, but if he wants to play, let him play. I mean, that's kind of what he's making money to do. You don't want him to, if I'm a teammate of Andre Drummond and they request a trade, he's like, cool, I'm just going to sit back and just chill and make some money, steal some money from the Cavs. I got a problem with that if I'm a teammate. I do. But if he's like, man, could you please let me play some games? And I understand you say, well, maybe they're trying to save him from injury. I understand that. But if the man's asking, and by the way, I don't think there's a deal on the table right now for Andre Drummond. And if he's like, man, I just want to go out here and play basketball, even if it's on a minutes restriction, I still want to play. You going to tell that man, no, you can't play? Because, he staying in shape. Once he's eventually traded somewhere else, he wants to come in shape, ready to go. And yeah, if you're totally healthy, you're ready to play basketball, and you're just sitting on the bench in street clothes, yeah, I would. That would not be fun. And I would have a problem with that if I were Andre Drummond. And so yeah, there is a double standard for how we the fans or we the media perceive organizations in these certain situations and players. Yeah, I never have a problem with the player requesting a trade. If he wants out of somewhere or she wants out of somewhere to give themselves a better opportunity to win, even sacrificing money to do so, good on you. But then the organization can say, well, we're just going to trade you. We're not going to give you the right to play, which is what you're paying the guy to do. There's a double standard. It's too. You can't sit back and say, well, that's totally fine. It's totally, it's even how we perceive it. It's not even. And so I agree with Draymond Green and his point. Andre Drummond should be allowed to play if the man wants to play and he's healthy. He's not dealing with any injuries. He hasn't been on the Cavs injury report the last couple of weeks. He's ready to go. And you say, no, we're not going to let you play. Because like I said, if I'm a teammate, if I'm a Cavaliers player, or if I'm a Detroit Pistons player, because Blake Griffin's in the exact same situation, they're not letting him play because they want to trade him. And if I'm sitting back as a teammate and I look at, my teammate who is going to get traded and they say, hey, you're not going to play and whatever. And you're like, oh, cool. All right, whatever. Yeah, I'm like, bro, trade this guy. He don't care about the game. He just cares about stealing money from y'all. But if he wants to play, he's wanting to earn it, quote unquote, earn that cash. Let him play. He's healthy. It's a shorter season. Again, these players don't have forever in the NBA. And so, yeah, again, my criticisms of James Harden, and I haven't backed off of this, is how he was given that much power. I'm all about giving superstars power, but that much power to literally dictate the schedules of practice and film session and team flights. Like, that's over the top. That's ridiculous. But that has nothing to do with James Harden's trade situation. So, Harden was dubbed a locker room cancer, this, that, the other. Yeah, there's a double standard in how we perceive trades. And how that whole, how that stuff goes down. So sticking with Brooklyn, they played the Lakers tonight. Final topic of the day. They play the Lakers tonight at, let me check, I believe it's at 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific time on TNT. Yep. Nets Lakers tonight, TNT, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Cannot wait for this game. Unfortunately, Kevin Durant is out. Of course, Anthony Davis, we knew this on Monday. He's out for, I'm guessing, a month, maybe longer with his Achilles issue. But KD's out with a hamstring strain. KD's been dealing with a lot of injuries this year. It's a little concerning considering what he just came off of a year and a half ago. But that's neither here nor there. So at the very least, we're getting LeBron versus Kyrie and LeBron versus James Harden. And, the Nets, the basketball team, not a contender, not a team that's going to go win a championship this season, but the Suns are a dang good basketball team with Devin Booker, Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton. That's how you win Monty Williams. And the Nets go into Phoenix without KD, without Kyrie. It's the one-man show, James Harden. They're down 20. So there's that. And by the way, I feel like I'm starting to see a little more team chemistry with Brooklyn. Their defense is still subpar at best. At the very best, and I think that's going to cost them in the long run. I like Philadelphia today more than I do Brooklyn. I just do. But nevertheless, they're playing the Lakers tonight. And they were asking LeBron, the media was asking LeBron the other night after the Lakers beat the Timberwolves on, I think it was Tuesday. Yeah, it was Tuesday night. Lakers beat the Timberwolves. And, of course, this is ahead of tonight's game. And they asked LeBron, they said, is this like the biggest, is this the best big three you've ever played, or even the best offensive big three you've ever faced? He's like, did we forget about the guys? Did we forget about KD, Klay, and Steph? And my first reaction is like, there you go, LeBron, give us respect. But my second reaction is like, well, yeah, of course, the Golden State's big three is absolutely, just sit back today. Let's talk about Brooklyn's big three, Golden State's big three. Would you take Golden State Kevin Durant, of course, pre-Achilles injury, where he had not really had any injury problems at all up until that playoff run, or Brooklyn KD, who's amazing, unstoppable. You can't, most unguardable offensive player in basketball, but there's still some nagging injuries with Kevin Durant. He's a little older. I'm taking Golden State KD over Brooklyn KD any day of the week. Okay, so then we go to the second best player. In Brooklyn, it's James Harden. In Golden State, it's Steph Curry. Okay, you've heard me say this on numerous occasions. Harden might put up better numbers than Steph, but one game for my life, man, I'm taking Steph over Harden. I'm taking a lot of guys over Harden any day of the week. Okay, he's a better shooter, better ball handler, better leader. Neither are great defensively, but Steph is a little better defensively. Moves well. Fights over picks better than James Harden does. Harden doesn't even try to fight over picks. So I'm taking Steph. So it's already 2-0. And then we go to Kyrie Irving and Klay Thompson. Now, we would all, I think for the most part, come to the conclusion, yeah, Kyrie's a better offensive player than Klay Thompson, right? He's not as good of a shooter, of course. Much better ball handler. I think Kyrie's the best ball handler I've ever seen. I mean, that dude's got the ball on a string. He's unbelievable. He's a much better finisher in the paint, of course. His off the, he's the best guard finisher we've ever seen that's not going to dunk on your head, like a Westbrook or like a John Wall or a Derrick Rose. He's the best finisher. He's the best point guard finisher in the paint that's not going to dunk on your head we've ever seen. I mean, his layup package is insane. But Klay, pre-Achilles, again, we're talking about the big three in Golden State around 2017, and of course in 2021 with the Brooklyn big three. Klay is leaps and bounds a better defender than Kyrie Irving. That's not even, nobody would debate that. Better shooter. I wouldn't say, less than selfish. He's less of a headache. Kyrie, you got to deal with all kinds of stuff. So yeah, LeBron is 100% right. The Golden State big three, I don't want to say it's like much better because Brooklyn's big three is unbelievable. I mean, it's amazing. But if you told me to get today, I always say this: one game for your life. Who you taking? In this case, am I taking Brooklyn's big three? Durant, Harden, Kyrie. Durant, who's dealing with more and more injuries. Harden, who collapses in the playoffs. And Kyrie, who's great, but can be a dang headache at times. Or am I taking Golden State with Kevin Durant without really any major injuries? Steph, who's a better shooter, ball handler, leader, makes big shots in big moments, unlike Harden. And then we got Klay Thompson, Kyrie Irving. Kyrie, by the way, I forgot to bring up Kyrie's injury history. And again, we're talking about Klay pre-Achilles. We're talking about 2017 Golden State, 2021 Brooklyn. Klay, who has no injury history at this point in his career, obviously a better shooter, obviously a better defender. And you don't have to worry about, oh, boys, is Klay gonna say something weird to the media? Is Klay gonna, skip a game randomly? You don't have to worry about that. You do with Kyrie Irving. So I don't think it's that much of a debate. I mean, if you're saying, at Rucker Park, still though, Brooklyn's got to get stops. You got to get stops. I think KD is a pretty good defender at this point in his career. I think Harden's actually a solid defender when he tries, but most of the time he doesn't. And Kyrie's just not a good defender at all. So today, I'm like, yeah, I'm taking Golden State easily. The big three from 2017 compared to the Nets big three 2021. I don't know why you wouldn't take them. Because you say KD. Sound like the Lecrae line in the one song from his newest album. Y'all got to check that out. But Kevin Durant today, Kevin Durant 4 years ago, KD in 2021 is dealing with more and more injuries, nagging injuries, hamstring, Achilles, and other things. Whereas 2017 KD, no major injuries. He had one major injury in Oklahoma City, but nothing, career threatening like an Achilles would be. But no major injuries, stays healthy. He's younger in his more, kind of in the middle of his prime. I think KD's kind of at the end of his prime right now, or towards the back half of his prime. Then you go to, Steph, Harden. Steph's much better than the playoffs. He's a much better ball handler. He's the greatest shooter ever. So of course he's a better shooter, and he's a better leader. Okay. Then we go with Kyrie and Klay. Klay's a better defender, better shooter, and more reliable, more dependable. Yeah, I'm taking Golden State's big three. I don't even think that's close. I'm looking forward to watching this game tonight. I mean, somebody said I saw a tweet today that said, "Let the NBA Civil War begin tonight," and it showed a picture of Lakers versus Nets because a lot of people are like, that's like our dream finals matchup, right? KD versus LeBron for the fourth time in the finals. They met in 2012, 2017, and 18. Could they meet in 2021? We'll see. But you have KD and LeBron. You got Anthony Davis and James Harden, and then you got Kyrie and Brooklyn. Like it just, it'd be a great finals matchup. It'd be amazing. And I would take the Lakers in 6 games. I said that before the season started. I predicted Nets, Lakers before the year started. I said Lakers in 6 games going back to back. But I'm always hesitant to pick regular season games in the NBA because, of course, they don't hold the same sense of urgency as the NFL does. I love picking NFL games. Every single game matters. Every game matters. I actually would rather pick a regular season baseball game because, you pick games based on the starting pitcher. You do. If it's Jacob deGrom against some pitcher with a ERA of 4.75, I'm going to take Jacob deGrom, and so I'm going to take the Mets, right? But NBA, it's tough. How many games have they been on the road for? Obviously, the Lakers have been it's kind of been weird. The Lakers have been better on the road than they have at Staples, which is kind of odd. The Lakers are usually great at Staples. But Brooklyn's right in the middle of a West Coast road trip. I'm going to take Brooklyn to win tonight. I don't know if that's the smartest thing to do. But from what I saw from James Harden the other night without Kyrie and Kevin Durant against a very good Phoenix Suns team, of course, I think the Lakers are better without Anthony Davis even than Phoenix. I would probably say that. They still got a really good roster. I think LeBron at this point, he realizes, look, we're not going to have full arenas by the time the playoffs come. We're not. We're not going to have full arenas by late May, early June. Or even, I'd be shocked if we had full arenas by late July when the finals start. It's probably not going to happen. I would say 99.9% chance that's not going to happen. So he realizes, LeBron's sitting back. He's like, look, home court advantage does not mean anything. I mean, it doesn't. We saw in the bubble, I guess it's more effective now than the bubble because you do have to fly to the games. In some cities, there'll be some fans, where I guess the COVID restrictions are lighter than they are in California, whatever. But I just look at this and that this is my biggest concern with the Lakers is not necessarily Anthony Davis's health, but LeBron's load. LeBron said going into the season, I'm going to take some games off. Now, LeBron hasn't missed a game yet, but you would have thought, save some energy. He is 36 years old. Father Time is undefeated. He's still great. He's still amazing. He's still, in my opinion, the second greatest player ever. And with a title this year, I think he gets closer and closer to making this Jordan-LeBron debate like a real legit debate. And can you imagine the media storm if that happens? But back to it, I think he's like, okay, I'm going to pull it back a little bit, maybe take a couple games off here and there on some road trips and then be ready to go once the playoffs get here. And Anthony Davis gets hurt. Somewhat predictably. This has kind of been Anthony Davis, part of a story of his career. He has trouble staying healthy. And so LeBron's going to be like, maybe not low managing his minutes, but saying, look, I'm more worried about playing Brooklyn in July than February because the finals are going to be in July. If those two teams play, he's like, look, let's just worry about the Nets down the road. Okay. It's, even if Kevin Durant was playing, it's not going to be like this terrible thing for LeBron's legacy because he lost to Kevin Durant again in a regular season game. It's not, LeBron doesn't worry about that. He knows, and everybody knows, it's all about what you do in the postseason. And of course, we know LeBron's amazing in the postseason. So that said, I got Brooklyn winning tonight. I'll take Brooklyn winning by a final score of one. I'm going to take Brooklyn 124 to 114. I'm going to write that down. Brooklyn's going to win tonight 124 to 114. All right. So hold me to it, guys. So with that said, we got a great game tonight. I believe, let's see who the Nets play, or excuse me, what the first game of the TNT doubleheader is. It is Raptors-Bucks. Okay, Raptors been playing good basketball lately. They got off to a really tough start. They're playing good basketball. The Bucks have been good, not, I guess, what some people might expect. Giannis has been amazing. The man's averaging 26 points a game, shooting 56% for the field, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, but nobody's talking about Giannis in the MVP discussion. Why? It goes to what I've said before in the past is I don't get how people vote, the media votes on the MVP award. I don't. Because I just read today and I was like, wait, hold on, what? LeBron's won 4 MVPs in his career. He hasn't won an MVP in 8 years. LeBron James, it's been 8 years since he won an MVP. It's like, what? For majority of the last 8 years, he's been the best player, and he's not won a single MVP in that span. It's crazy. I mean, again, Giannis is the back-to-back. I'm not saying Giannis is the MVP, but I think he's in the discussion. I mean, the man's averaging 28 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists. And he's third in PER. He should be in the MVP discussion. I mean, he's shooting 56% from the field. I don't know. Media can be inconsistent sometimes, man, especially in the MVP race. I mean, nobody's, Nobody's talking about Steph Curry and the numbers he's putting up, comparing, he's putting up numbers, I'm not joking, compared to Michael Jordan. He's putting up numbers similar to his unanimous MVP season. I talked about this last Friday. So I don't know. We'll see. But I'm looking forward to the games tonight. So we'll see what happens. With that, that is all the time we have for today's show. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening if you're listening on the podcast. So hope everybody has a great evening. Catch us on Carving Up Live tomorrow. As always, same time, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. Hope everybody has a great evening. Enjoy some good basketball. God bless you all.